Hello, this is Martin Q, and I wanted to do sort of a meta video, some content on content creation, as someone who is very much not making a living off of the internet, and instead just kind of looking from the outside in at all the communities of influencers and streamers all networking together and doing their thing, providing entertainment and escapism from some of our daily lives. But the struggles of real life that keep somebody like myself from being a content creator, myself doing what you want on the internet, right? That is what spurred me to do this in the first place. So let's get into it. So, first off, traits and circumstance. What makes a content creator? You have to have something to bring, right? And of course, there are the actual creators, people who do something. They provide gameplay, their hobby, commentary, analysis, right? We see plenty of animators, artists to bring their work to the internet and publish it, and hopefully it gets attention, right? There's always the hope that this is the one that goes viral, and with everything that comes with that, advertisers, some exposure, potentially a deal for monetization, which I will get into later. You can see with the list. And then you have the domino effect of, well, reaction content, which is, of course, has a lot of controversy regarding how transformative it is, whether you actually bring enough of an outside perspective to make it something new and not just playing somebody else's video or showing somebody else's work off without doing anything, and you gain some amount of views, acclaim, or whatever just from the algorithm suggesting you and whatever you get subscribers, blah 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 blah. Yeah. Uh, so the whole point of all of that is trying to make a living because it's something that you're interested in, and if it can support you, you have partially solved the existential crisis of being able to pay for a place to stay, your food, water, everything you need to live, right? That's just us taking care of our animal needs and taking care of another part of the hierarchy of needs. You're able to survive, but then you're able to live by enjoying what you do. And so sometimes that comes with certain traits, things that will help you do that. There are people who are more driven, they're more motivated, they naturally are inclined to stick to schedules, they like the regimented order of their day, they like setting deadlines for themselves. That type of person will do better usually. And and then again, because it is such a difficult thing to break into something like content creation, it's all these things that are not typical jobs where you have a guaranteed wage for every number of hours that you work, right? Those are the things that you need to count on because again, you have bills to pay. If you don't have that reliably, then going all in on content creation is a huge risk because suddenly you have no money for rent and you're risking being on the streets. And that's not a sane goal. That's not a thing you can rely on. So that is where we get into circumstance because culture has made it so that it's just about hard work. And if you work hard, you're going to succeed. That is, hard work will get you very far. It is not a guarantee, unfortunately, because you see that it helps to have enough money, a cushion to fall back on, just in case something risky, like a non-standard job like content creation, in case it doesn't take off immediately. You can spend that time slowly gathering followers, subscribers, until it becomes sustainable. So the circumstance is whether or not you are already somewhat wealthy or otherwise have a support network. So I am luckily supported by my family, and it keeps my housing costs down and some of my food costs down. But I also know I can't be with them forever. Uh, and I work a day job, which is it's entry level. Basically, I'm working a cash register, a drive through, and yeah, it's tiring customer service. Um, and that is putting funds into a backup just in case the worst happens and I suddenly can't rely on my parents anymore. But that also takes all of the energy that a standard job does, and with my few days off, then it leaves me wondering, like, well, is this the day I start up the stream and after hours and hours and hours of talking to people at a fast food drive-through, right? Are you ready to be interactive with a chat room of a couple people? Are you ready to give commentary and analysis of all your thoughts? Right? It becomes difficult to imagine that for another 6 to 8 hours, let alone, are you catching up on your sleep? Are you resting up because you have to go back to work? So having to do that is a circumstance that makes it harder to devote all your time to, oh yeah, no, here's a 12-hour stream of video games, just like the good old days in high school or something. You can't just do that. So those are a decent amount of traits and circumstance, although, well, actually, no. This is another important one then, because VTubers have risen in the past few years. I don't know the exact history. When I started seeing them on the YouTube page with it's like Kizuna Ai or something, whatever the VTuber model. But the whole idea of a VTuber, just a character avatar that is not tied to your webcam or whatever, so that you don't have to be physically seen to have a visual animated presence to show off some of your gestures, your emotions, your emotions for comedy, right? To give a little speed, snap to what you're doing instead of just being a disembodied voice. That helps with some level of charisma, that helps with audience engagement. Those are things that help build something of a community. And yes, to those who are more cynical, your avatar can be very attractive, and that draws in people from thumbnails to some degree. That keeps some people around, especially if it is it is content that is meant to be alluring to draw in that type of person. Not trying to make it sound completely evil. I know it, yeah, but that is something you can do with it. Um, so that ties in with, well, what people believe is charisma, which is your ability to speak, communicate, and then yes, how you are perceived. There is the halo effect. For those who don't know, it is roughly the idea that somebody who has attractive traits, they are a good person, something like that. And obviously, that somebody who is less attractive or more repulsive, it is that much harder to get attached to them, right? Everything else being equal, it will be a little bit more difficult to accumulate followers, right? There is some level of skin deep judgment. Not saying it is everything, but it does somewhat matter. So with VTubers, that is somewhat liberating. That there are people who, yes, could probably not be considered conventionally attractive, can be their true selves. It much like choosing a video game avatar as your representation in game, you get to embody that, and People might not judge you quite as harshly as they would otherwise. And I know caveat that yes, there are also attractive people who get VTuber models who are also VTuber models that can be more or less attractive than they actually are. That's fine. Yeah, if they actually just want to VTube because they don't like being on camera or something else, right? If they just like the direction of that being a tool for streaming, then that's fine. I'm just trying to say something about how it is a tool that you can use to make up for traits and circumstances that are out of your control, right? Pretty much that's an entire other video about how much control you have over like your physical attractiveness and stuff like that, right? I'm an American. We have the weight loss, fat jokes, and all of that. It's a whole thing. Um, and so this is where, just so I'm not like a hypocrite, throwing those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones or something. Just turning on my webcam. So hello. Um, so I mean, yeah, I whatever. Anybody who's watching the video, you can make your judgments now. But my point being, right, that up until this point in the video was everything that was purely vocal, and the inflection of my voice, right, the manner of speaking, how I organize my thoughts. This is clearly not a practiced written down speech. I like to think that that makes it a little bit more sincere. It gets a little bit more rambly, but it's not so reading off of a teleprompter kind of fake, right? It's like, this is how I'm feeling. I'm just going off of these points. So yes, and then if you have like a hot webcam presence, and oh yeah, no, I don't know. I don't really want to do the judge myself out of 10 or something, but like the point being, like I feel like I've been lucky enough that I'm not as repulsive as I could be. I got lucky. I didn't have to really work for this. It's a lot of this is genetics, um, right? And it's I have to at least acknowledge that for the amount of other people who would also try to do this. And if you spy their face in a thumbnail and you're just not, if you assume things about them like they don't seem intelligent, right? Or they don't seem kind, those are all things that you feel, even if you don't even say them, that you feel on some level. Um, so yeah, so that's all I wanted to bring up on that part. That there's some chance and there's some luck involved, and you can manipulate it to some extent, but those are the traits and circumstances that get in the way of content creation. All right, without even getting into things, the additional skills, right? Like you should know of professional video editor, right? I'm just using OBS. The that gets into things like, oh, it should look more professional. You should have not a video editor program, but you should literally hire an editor who puts all of this together. Or right, you could even have somebody who networks an agent or something, and they email other content creators. They look for things for you. Or oh wait, you know what would be really cool at drawing people in for content creation is hiring an artist and a maker, an animator, to give you a kick-ass intro and outro, right? Scene transitions. You gotta pay them. Those are all things that you have to consider splurging on. You have to save up more, and you make that investment. Yeah. Anyways, um, so yeah, and then the motivation. So I did mention already that the hope is that you try to make a living off of it as opposed to your normal job, because the nature of a lot of normal jobs, customer service, a lot of entry level stuff, is that it's pretty tiring, and maybe a lot of people don't find it satisfying to think of doing it long term, right? Physically and mentally draining. And so content creation is seen as an alternative to that. The people see that there are people who've made it, which I will get into in the perception part, And yeah, they hope that, oh well, my friends and family have told me that I'm funny or I'm really thoughtful, and I should put that to use with something else. But well, in the U.S., again, we do not have free college education, university. You have to be lucky enough to already have a scholarship offer. You have to basically know what you're already doing at age 18, because even if you have a scholarship, they usually only apply it for your 4 years, your first attempt at a degree. And if it turns out that that's not for you, then all of those credit hours, that time is wasted if you don't pick something else that is adjacent to your initial subject, right? So, uh, not to give my entire sad life story or something, but yeah, like some things didn't work out, and so there I am. And so it's much harder to pivot to something, to just apply your skill set. You just kind of just Google it, essentially. And so I am not really holding my breath on, oh, it's suddenly going viral and this suddenly working, but I think it's somewhat fun. I think a lot of people wish for the days of, oh yeah, no, people just used to post videos and they do things because they like it, and that makes for better content. And yes, but as I said before, if you are tired from your day job, then you can only pull so much energy back out. You can only make so much time before you do it again, because that's the sort of thing that causes burnout, which I will cover later. Um, yeah, but I mean, that's roughly the motivation. I think it's cool that people can seek a community over the internet, and that gives them some socialization. Obviously, it's parasocial. It's not, very much not the same, usually not as healthy as a real life friend, somebody you can physically meet in the real world. But again, we don't. If you're in an area that doesn't have that, then what else are you supposed to do? If you're living in like U.S. suburbs, then you could be miles away from people, and right, that just gets into an entire other discussion on the cost of housing, the cost of transport, uh, finding, what is it, third places where you can just hang out and be without an expectation of being charged money, right? If you're not the kind of person to hang out in bars, if you don't think that's going to attract the type of person that you'd be into, then you're relying on gaming groups. um, right, that's possible. But yeah, you get a little bit of socialization, you get a little chance at building a community, and the hope is that you can make it a regular part of your life. All right. Well, monetization. So yeah, if you somehow manage to go viral, to get a big enough notoriety to get the attention of an advertiser, or maybe you can get some sort of like hashtag ad thing, right? Where for gaming, if you get the attention of a developer, maybe you'll get some free codes. Maybe you can get a working relationship with them, right? It's something that helps you support yourself. Over time, you grow it and grow it and grow it to the point where, oh yeah, no, from the ad revenue plus subscriptions, or the monthly, people who are paying me monthly for your Patreon or something, or you add all of that together, and if that is more than that's as much as or more than your rent, your cost of food, and your emergency savings and stuff, then congratulations, you have done it. And obviously, a lot of people never make it to that point, and in order to get monetized, you there are there is cynicism over the kind of deals that you take. So I know that there's plenty of scams, there's plenty of advertisers or sponsorship deals where content creators will, yeah, they will endorse it, they will read it out to a community of people who are supposed to be able to trust them, right? You're supposedly building up goodwill over all that time that you've been making content, that you've been interacting with people online, and if you're being sincere, if you're bearing your soul to them, then then yeah, you're taking advantage of it if you then have to if you feel you should do a sponsorship for something that ends up taking advantage of that community. I'm sure there's one going around YouTube or whatever right now. I'm not about to do a full on TED Talk deep dive into that. That would be another video entirely, probably. Um, but yeah, like those are the things that people do in desperation. Like this is the thing that's going to bring me out of despair, out of the rat race, right? The nonstop treadmill of just being what obscure. So I mean, that is a topic for another video about like sort of Squid Game mentality, desperation. You do less than savory things because you think it'll sustain you, and it is the best option for you at the moment, and you set aside your morals. But the hope is that you can be as good as possible to support yourself. It's just not it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Um, and then yeah, that would also involve things like how often you run ads. If you have control over that, I know that I'm I'm not really part of any partnership program. I'm a Twitch affiliate, but again, I don't get to stream a lot, and I know there at least, yeah, you choose how often you run ads, and obviously in a live stream, suddenly having your experience interrupted by that is jarring and it hurts your interactions, which is the whole reason why you're there, right? So you are making the choice of like maybe that'll support you a little bit, and hopefully people understand and it doesn't bother them too much, but you try to balance your morals and what keeps you alive because of the power dynamics of advertisers and whatnot. But yeah, that is what goes into your motivation so that you can survive with your circumstances. Um, so then, on to perception. So, we I mentioned Squid Game. I mentioned some of the content creator sponsorship, advertisement scams. So yeah, there is that perception. I don't think I need to go too deep into actual mainstream perception of content creation because, right, it's the same thing it's always been with movies that have like a video game in the background or something, right? Oh, we brought in an influencer or content creator because though that'll bring kids into the movie theater seats or it'll help them share about our show or whatever, right? We've seen that. About like, oh, these people don't actually know what it is, they just know it exists, and that's why they're including it. But yeah, that's mainstream, like Ninja, I don't know, PewDiePie. Probably what Free Guy did a lot of that. But yeah, for the actual internet going community, the perception of somebody like Mr. Beast, where it's exploitative on some level. They're still doing some good, but it's a system where that sort of person has that much wealth, and that's what needs to be done to help certain people quickly. But we shouldn't have a system that relies on that sort of charity happening at random, at the will of the wealthy person. Um, hmm. So yeah, for better and for worse, that is a perception of content creation. I know that Iron Mouse is another big one. Not trying to burn too many bridges with this one video, but I mean they are big influencers for a reason. But yeah, like somebody like Iron Mouse, where she's talked openly about she has some sort of terminal illness or some in very intense illness, but good on her for being able to support herself for her treatments. But obviously, universal health care, that shouldn't even be a problem. Um, But yeah, as just good people being fortunate enough to gather a community that cares and is able to support them. It's basically the GoFundMe situation, right? That you publicize some sort of your suffering, your misery, and yeah, you hope that you go viral and that enough people help you to solve that problem. It shouldn't be what it's made. It should be for fun things and not for that. But that is what it has kind of become. Um, so yeah, that's the perception of like influencers who will do anything for clicks, who will try to make anything go viral because it's a fast moving culture and environment where because of the algorithm and whatnot, if you're not constantly growing, then you're stagnating, and if you're stagnating, then before you know it, suddenly you're on a downward trend. If you're not getting uh, if you're not getting referred to new viewers, if you're not on the front page of something, then less people discover you. Which means your engagement goes down even more, which tells the algorithm, oh, yeah, this person must not be very interesting. So they hide you even further. So less people find, right? It's a rich get richer, poor get poorer situation. And we only really see the survivorship bias, the ones that made it, which are why we have the success stories. It's like, oh, well, yeah, that it worked for them. So anybody can do it. It's like, well, yeah, that's a chance, but no, for every success story, like another Iron Mouse or whatnot, right? You have thousands, most likely, thousands and thousands of people who stay in obscurity for years, for almost forever, um, doing things that are just as interesting with personalities that are just as vibrant and amazing, and they just don't go viral. The amount of times that you'll see a YouTube video, it's like, oh, why is the algorithm referencing this now? This is amazing. And it was like 10, 7 to 10 years ago, right? Like, great. But, if it turns out that that person who created that video or that was their one time foray into streaming or whatever, it's like, yeah, I'll see if this works. And it didn't work out. They moved on. Are they likely to check back with that YouTube account or whatever, right? Or that person has just given up and moved on to a day job or something, right? Then it doesn't really matter. It didn't happen at the right place at the right time, and that is why the people are so desperate. Um, why every streamer wants to just get in the algorithm to be on everybody's mind all the time. Why it sucks, but that's why networking is so big. That a single mention, a single shout out from somebody with a higher viewer count than you, and just a larger existing community can give you so much more attention, so many more new eyes on your content than if you just worked hard. I know this because that is literally what happened when I stream. That I was, I'd be playing games, I would joke around, I would be very interactive. There would be tons of rapport with me and viewers, cracking jokes at story-based games, RPGs, and whatnot. It's like, sure, you could always be. I could always have invested more time, money, and energy into it. But the point being, if you're the same sort of personality, putting in weeks of hard work, streaming and doing all that, versus being what I would feel is slightly obnoxious and just hanging around people who have larger communities than you just to get your name shouted out. Um, I was fortunate to have a Twitch community that was friendly to me. I just haven't had the time for it, but yeah, like they would give me a shout out, and I would get far more followers in an instant than from my own hard work. That is, I was grateful, of course, but that is demoralizing because that just shows you the kind of uphill battle that you have, and the social expectations of like, well, I can't just constantly beg for these people to do that for me. So, I mean, the hope is that you network organically with people in your community, right? Your peers um, in gaming in your online space. But I mean, it is awkward to be aware of that power dynamic. Like, what can you do for me? What is the transactional friendship that we can get here? Uh, I mean, that kind of goes back to the traits and circumstance. There are people who, due to nature and nurture, their upbringing, what they were taught, how they feel that they what they feel they can ask for. There are people who are more comfortable with that and being more of a social butterfly. They will do better. Unfortunately, that is not me. Uh, so yeah, that is a very I got a bit off the rails there, but that is what goes into the perception of content creator behavior, what they do, why they feel they have to do that, which goes into hobby burnout because we have seen that too. So as of this recording, I know that MatPat had one of these. I'm sure anybody stumbling upon this can pick out some content creator somewhere where they will do that video upload. It's like, guys, we gotta talk, or important news for the channel or something, whatever, right? And yeah, sometimes they will talk about, like, if they're a smaller streamer, especially, that yeah, this isn't working out. They have to move on with their lives. Like I said before, the people who worked in obscurity for years, operating at a loss for the money they invest into an online presence that doesn't go viral, that they just can no longer justify, then yeah, they say we're quitting the channel, we're shutting it down. I'm gonna get a day job. That is always the implied other message. Even if they never say it, right? That they have to go back to whatever other method is sustaining them. But even among the ones that stay, they will say things like, yeah, because of all that behavior that I just went on about, you must always be creating. You can't take a break because you need to be in the algorithm. You need to be constantly growing. That burns you out, right? No matter what you're doing. And if you don't like what you're doing, then you get the stress of doing something you don't like. But if you do like what you're doing, you would think that makes it easier, except when it eventually loops back around. Because obviously, if you do what you love for a living and you have to monetize it, you have to think about it as work all the time, you sort of get to resent it. I haven't been in that position, obviously. I'm not making a living off of games and things that I love, but from what I've seen, yeah, if that is in your mind, that it becomes like an obligation, and it drags on you, then as I've heard, that you will eventually hate that thing you used to love. So in a way, that steals more joy from you. So those content creators who say that, yeah, I love, like for MatPat or whatever, I love coming up with all of these highly researched videos and giving these big deep dives on something, then a lot of people would complain, like, why you get to do this fun thing and you're going to do less of it for us? You owe that to us, your community, who got you this far or something, right? I'm picking a joke on the most entitled people. Obviously, most people are not like that, but I think there is that feeling about, like, well, it's such an easy job. You made it. You got the alternative sustainable lifestyle. Why can't you just do that? Because yeah, you eventually burn out. You can't maintain that energy forever, and you want to take it slow. So that is quite literally what was stopping me from making a video like this before finally creating this tiny little bullet point list. Is that I'm you're tired. You want to just play games or something for yourself rather than worrying about, like, is my tone of voice going to be good, right? Was I too rambly in this version of the video that I'm recording right now? I'm literally not going to do it because I'm 34 minutes in, but almost 35 minutes. But yeah, that is social energy. That is a performance. And that's not even getting into things like comments, right? Reactions. If this were live instead of a recording, I would have a chat room. Those are all things that you need to consider, and that would burn you out. It would keep you from having that energy for like 16 hours a day working your day job or doing this, or if you were doing this full time, you must always be either streaming, creating your acting out your content, or planning and researching your next piece of content and having an upload schedule, something that people can reliably come back to, and something that creates hype so that more people will spread news of what you do. And yeah, that's exhausting. That gets into an entire other discussion about like, oh well, 40-hour work week, that's full time, and that's the bare minimum for being a capable adult. That entire work ethic, toxic work ethic, is a subject for another day. But that goes into some of the perception of how a content creator should be. So yeah, I tried to bring in some examples with content creators that I knew. Not personally, obviously. I am a nobody to them, but I think most people know of them. And for the ones that I don't list, right, you try to apply some of what I said to them. That even if they don't bring up some of the things that I talked about, that's probably happening in the background. Try, right? I We're living in a weird age with socioeconomics, politics in the U.S. right now, 2025, January, about the kind of empathy that you need to know that there's all these things happening in the background that of people just living their lives and trying to do things, and some of it is laziness. If you really wanted to do this goal that you had, this ambitious thing, then you should just exhaust yourself and destroy yourself for years to get it going. And great on the people who somehow managed to do that, but obviously I don't want them to get hurt physically or mentally. But I also think it's just sad that we feel we should demand this of people who are trying to do something interesting, something that they're interested in a way that they can give back, right? Like in an ideal world, this would be productivity. This is kind of like a philosophy video, right? Everybody gets onto like, oh, Socrates, Aristotle, these philosophers, they just sit around and they think all day. And it's like, yeah, if we have productivity, if we have automation, such that the economy functions and everybody's relatively comfortable, then yeah, some people would call laziness is people thinking on the nature of our existence, the world, on our interpersonal relationships, right? Content creation, videos, these are just modernized versions of communication. Yes, if you get past the drama and stuff like that, but even that it happened back then too, right? They just didn't make a big deal about it. But these are some of the things that I think about before I have to go back to my day job tomorrow and then several days in a row and wonder when I'm going to do this again. But hopefully everybody stays okay out there. And it's a tough time. Just know that everybody's going through something. Uh, Everybody's the main character of their own lives, right? And we're all just in the background of each other's stories. So that's enough rambling. Take care. I'll see you next time whenever I can pull together enough of my social battery and energy to do another topic.